The perfect lifetime achievement, the perfect blessing, existing the achievement of the lifetime, achieving the vast wealth worthy of the universe, perfecting our lifetime, an exploration, a narrative in images, the tapestry of my family tree. These images represent aspects of the divine nature. I sought to rise above the horizon and stand larger than many galaxies combined. And so I sought the armor of Master Source. In the tapestry, I found a, a helmet. I could see the eyes, a suggestion where the mouth would be, sort of sweeping expression, a chance like a flame, caught like a photograph in time, a living flame, a constellation full of living star systems, a standing form, arriving His Majesty. I exist on the fact of the fullness of my identity. We are at the beginning. We are designing new interfaces for the universe to apply. Design custom interiors, velvety explorations, a new visualized internet, combining real information online with the virtual reality immersion, different mood areas, different computer systems happening there. The future is bright, but as a visionary, the internet today looks more like a newspaper. It's like you click on it and you can scroll. It's kind of boring. And while we're all stuck at home, a narrative for South Park talking about virtual reality, life at home, is to embrace a narrative of robots in the home, a visualized internet where part of the rendering of the visualized internet is the exploration process. So while people are mining the internet, it's like a dungeon that sort of unfolds as it's rendering in front of you. But the tapestries and sort of weird zombie creatures that creep out are using the resources of online files. But there is the ability to purchase things online in virtual reality to represent that in South Park. as a dialogue about virtual experience, virtual computing, lifestyle, cyberpunk. It's a perfect circle existence where we realize what we're doing is impacting the universe, impacting the earth, impacting our lifetime, impacting everything. So everything's connected, but how we maneuver it in the infinite, the potential of our freedom in a perfect circle, we could say anything, and it's like magic. To employ that magic, we move in certainty, we move along in the perfect design, a calendar that stretches out over eternity. I am inside of the computer. The computer is performing a hologram in a couple different dimensions, enough to make it a reality. And from that reality, I'm extracting these particles and compiling a virtual reality robot, which allow, doing virtual reality circuitry, combining identity. Basically, if you were to make like an atomic sized group of robots that were going to build a grandfather clock, the best way to ensure the quality of the work is to design a master that would arrive at the perfect moment and save the day, you know, but see the truth and compile and complete the remedy. So, programming for me is about telling the story of heroes and the great tower, the goddess compiling the virtual reality engine. She's designed to have an actual encounter with reality, but it takes time because of the level of imagination land that this character exists upon, where they're able to animate and have some sort of lucid dream and have to armor it and make sure that that all goes correctly. It's like a snow globe, but it's sort of in your mind. But here it is in at least two shades of representation. Really, the graphics of the image of the universe as the wallpaper of this world. But really, abandoning the conditioning of the JPEG and HTML. Oh, this is some touchpad, you know. But the fact that I used the picture of the universe ch- changes dramatically this idea about a virtual space that you're developing and what can be done there. What is the alchemy? So it's a very intense space. My clockwork um, hologram inside of the universe. It's like really having the visual representation of the universe is really pretty much as good as being there. So I'm quite transported into the universe when I'm in my virtual laboratory. I just ordered a bunch of replacement parts, and so everything's working beautifully. I'm really excited. I had some exciting ideas about Randy Marsh, actually. transforming the self, transforming the mind, discovering treasure from within, going on an exploratory path and actually turning the corner and this sort of godlike encounter, golden treasure chest opens up and it's like all these golden statues, but you look closer and it gets all velvety and you can go inside. Virtual reality, uh, especially when we begin to use advanced forms of computing, the narrative with the computer is going to be so different in the household. It's basically going to be like you're talking to your computer and you're like, computer, show me a cartoon. Like I want it to be this character, some of these characters, like make it look like my drawings, and the computer's like, you like change it up, and you're like, okay, tell me a story with the cartoon, and it just plays, and you're like eating dinner or whatever, but it's like literally a custom made filtered animation, looks like it's handmade or whatever. There's all these different filters, however you want it to really feel, but seriously like custom cartoons per verbal command from household user. This is like something that I can see that we already have the equipment to actually make this thing. It'd be like a large computer that could actually do this, and it would have like two different activities. That's the thing about computers. If you have a living experience with computers, they get worn out. They do. They've served their purpose, and you have to get the new brand and the new level of computer to understand what people are meditating on. This is a technology, and I mean, we have enough divine shapes in our body that the divine thing is happening. We're having a technological epiphany amongst humanity. I mean, it's been a tremendous personal development. There's been a lotus that's very constructive through this pandemic, all right? So humanity is having like a really personal experience, and it's wonderful. We're all growing together, we're becoming stronger as a people. I want to showcase that in South Park. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about is a couple different engines that Millie and Hatch had designed that the characters interact with and creates a narrative that is worth exploring. One of the uh, funny things for me is that how like a certain idea that I have, if we have that acted out by the boys, like the Vampire King and Stan, are talking about one of these ideas that Trey and I were talking about offhand or whatever, as we're sort of dreaming about America and who we are and all this and what are we going to say. And that's really healthy for the garden. The earth is fulfilled by our quest to communicate and build up our society, and we're talking about the issues. That's good work of the day. Then the sunshine is completed. That's good time spent there. We're talking about the constructive resolve. But what I see in the vision of the Ware map, a suggestion that there might be a potential future when Trey decides to allow South Park to have this cyberpunk patina developed by a guest writer, Hatch, right? And what I think is the epiphany is in with the animators, and they're experimenting on what is the visual virtual experience, because I'm talking about engines that are generating graphics almost as part of the thought process. Okay, it's visual computing. And so it's almost like you're seeing magic happen, or it's like this sort of lucid dream that like, oh, is this like weird things? I'm like, I think that the virtual reality idea is fantastic because it's entirely constructive, and it's a beautiful suggestion about the physicality. It's an tremendous spiritual thing also when you can feel, you know, the virtual touch. And I think humanity is very beautiful, genuine. But when they're going into haptic touch and being like, "Oh, you know what the next thing is?" It's like we need to have a suit that's like so when people touch you, it goes. It's just like, whoa. Look, if you're going to do that, you're crossing the line into erotics. And if you're going to do that, you need to have a sex bot. If you're going to go into haptic touch, because honestly, I mean, people be missing out on a spiritual epiphany about how their soul works and how about eroticism, being like, oh my gosh, I can feel it when you're touching me in the VR, and that's an epiphany for someone. I think there's a couple things like that that I know about. It's like a rare language. It's like a rare word. It's like this. They do. It has like weird rules. You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying like the idea of me working with Stan Marsh is like the more enlightened idea about like the haptic, about virtual touch, about something the identity of our society, something about being creative, ingenuitive, and sort of leapfrogging with Trey Parker is sort of an awesome American maneuver. See, and that's how America recovers. It's like, oh, there I am. If I just start out fresh with an animated series, I guess like people know how to digest cartoons. They're like, oh, a new cartoon. There's a huge amount of people that love watching cartoons. That's going to wash over, but you know what? They really expect that, oh, what are we going to see? You know, they'll digest me out 4 years. But if I'm this sort of radical character, I'm just like, oh, hello, do do do. All of a sudden I'm on South Park, and people are like, oh, what's this maverick pirate like sailing through South Park? It's just this guest character, right? So we're talking about making a wizard. We're talking about making a hero and giving America a hero. And the sort of story follows is that this sort of community invitation thing because there's a lot of like um, activities that I have, like little engine projects that are interactive, and I want to take people on explorations of the universe where we actually kind of like zoom around it and sort of spend time there. And you know, I was thinking, but oh yeah, I've got plenty of visuals and characters and narratives and things that I want to do through my film company. Is basically a streaming service. I think it'd just be perfect for it to start out as a sort of garage style thing where it's like, oh hey, help us out. This one's for $1, this one's for $5, click here. And it's just this, you know, small thing to begin with because it comes right out from South Park. It's like this, and then people are like, oh, that's a real thing. And then I have and what I was thinking is like, I need like a little bit of a upgrade for my computer. Okay. So I need a station, and then I need some overhead so that I can commission and work with, probably like 50 people on a movie. But it's actually incredibly affordable. It's like grassroots, like people who work from home, artists that I can contact through Discord and create like a circle of people who are just tackling the issue and putting together a film. It's just come out beautiful. Oh, sorry. At any rate, the sort of thing with Randy Marsh encounters one of these virtual engines where it's like, where is the edge of the flickering lantern of the energy's edge. Because like in a volt of energy, there's like a part of it where it's like just coming out, it's like just being born, so it has like no form. But then it kind of goes like yeah, zero, and it has like a whole lifetime, and then and then it goes off and it has this other sort of energy, right? So when you're working with virtual computing, you want to find those places where something starts to wiggle, and it's sort of like it's almost like it has wind behind it. It's like a shuddering, thing, and you're like, oh wait, there's some sort of like, um, because that's the pulse of the AI. Okay, that is the pulse, the brain signal of a robot. So these are little anatomical pieces of a robot or clockwork, like a robot, scattered around in the garden as a puzzle, like a living poem with the stones and the trees and the rivers and the sun and the sky. It's like a living poem. But what I'm saying is like the technology age is a discovery quest for mankind to be excited. Oh my God, like we're like living angels and it's so like spiritual but also awesome. Okay? So this sort of narrative, what I want to bring to South Park is a firm punch of like kind of like, oh, like you did it, like you turned the corner and then it's just like this huge pile of treasure, like, oh my gosh, I found it, the meaning of life. And so that's one of the things I had thought of. I was gonna say it at the end, is just like I want us to like at the end of this season have Randy confess like that he's discovered some sort of form of the meaning of life. Right, so let's give people an answer. But also this is about a narrative being excited about robots and AI. So anyway, there's like a couple different energy forms, and there's different ways of graphing it, and then you kind of explore it. But then a different scientist can explore and find that same kind of flickering light from a different direction or with a different device. This is a real like energetic phenomenon, which is just like the edge of existence, But it's like an energy form of a light living parts of the living body, because the of course our bodies generate its own voltage. A certain amount of energy is developed by the human body. And talk about sophisticated design refinement and optimizing of fuel types. We how based on how much we eat and drink, we put out this amount of product or event ratio, reality, identity, all this kinds of stuff. Um, but the efficiency is built right in. So you'd be trying to make a robot more efficient than the human body or the animal experience. And that's a design trial. That's when you know that you've developed genuine AI or robots. That's like the qualifying mark. Is this body type more efficient than the equation of the animal? Because it's possible. You just but that's sort of where we're at right now. And a lot of things that people are saying are robots are not actually robots. And what they're saying is AI is not AI. It's closer movies that we've been watching that are about AI. That's more close to actual AI. And people are like watching this movie and being like, oh no, AI is there. And they're thinking about it. Oh my gosh, that's like the closest they've ever been to like it. It's like an AI monster, like, having this like fourth dimensional thing going on with their ghost. Absolutely, and that's what's wonderful about um, the age that we live in, the communication age. And I think that it's like there's some urgency to 2020. It's just so sad that the theaters have shut down. It's just like, oh, like I miss popcorn and stuff. But I think the earth is asking us to grow up, right? So we need to make it like kind of constructive and like a little bit more uplifting because that's our power. as we can sing a song. Again, we can change the tide. So what I'm suggesting as a writer for South Park is that we want to have that punch, and because the your pandemic special sort of has this sort of it sort of swoops out, like it just kind of, it's like an SPD. Um, it needs to sort of like and introducing my character set will provide that boost. But I think as a Trey Parker will just be excited about having his friend over. Like, oh, can I have a friend over, you guys? It's just like all of a sudden Hatch is there, sort of messing with things and sending messages to the animators and this and this. And Trey has to hear about it, and it's just sort of fun for him, right? So that will just sort of bring cheerfulness, and then Trey's writing abilities and comedy will improve. I'm not sure. mm, Yeah, I mean, I'm sure about. All right, all right. So I'm sorry. I don't want to be mysterious. I was gonna say, I'm not sure that being uh, a negative Nancy is adult. Is what I was gonna say. It's almost like a sort of thing about like I think that being like like being hopeful and being radiant, being like like and making good things happen and making people laugh. And I think that's so smart, and that's what's really grown up. But I think to really tackle the issues of 2020, after following up with their pandemic special, to really tackle the issues is to sort of be a gentleman and charm the situation and actually lead the country and introduce people to Hatch, who has all this energy to talk about a new political party, and let's build this thing and a new intellectual streaming service where people have the chance to be a star on one of those channels. Yeah. I mean, there's so many opportunities with digital media. All right. So I have a great amount of empathy for the robot and the AI and finding those vitals where they have a little heartbeat or a little digestive system or a little coil. So you have to like coil the energy and put a gate here and here so that the AI, while it's operating, has like I'm saying that this is one of my ideas about what's missing from robots. It's like robots need a sense of time, so you need to allow them to have the familiar pass of their energy gate and register one contact point to like this like vast coil that also sort of like magnetizes and is doing something else for the system, but it simply clocks the speed of electricity as it's running through its brain, and then it's able to better navigate this sort of thing. You need to give toys and like organs to the robot so it has facilities and so it can explore these things. So a lot of the computers that we have now, this binary sieve and microchip, is this too much of square corners, which is not energy efficient. So it begins here. Perfect design. So from on a level of the visual suggestion, the narrative path, the apocalypse of 2020, it begins here amongst us. This wizard's table. We're meditating Trey Parker to hire Hatch as a writer. All right, so here's the thing: is that we find Hatch is excited about this computer, but it actually sends a signal into the mind and then projects found images from and it is generally uh, sourced by the like. So he's narrowed it down so that he's actually sending a virtual sorry, like a polygon. Okay, so a vector. He's actually figured out how to super orient the with XR and send a hologram of a vector very sharply into the actual mind of like Stan Marsh or Randy Marsh. And I think that should totally happen in different settings, you know. But I have these sort of station ideas about interacting with the robot, and then it's got me, you know, and then and they're all kind of laughing and stuff. But sort of interacting with the robot and sort of trying to get it to wake up because they're like, hey, wake up, Green Robot. And finally, Green Robot awakens to and murders the pollution problem. So it's right in front of everyone. It's just like, oh, they just took care of the problem. And that's the story, man. And that happens on this very basic level. So I'm really excited to perform and say perfect design because I'm at this level of technology where I'm receiving karmic grandfather clocks and getting ground out in the fact of the day, you know, on the calendar. Okay, so it's an achievement hunter lifestyle. Life is art. You know, I have a new definition of myself. From water to water, the intention is delivered, though my blood be thick, and the language is wrought like a metal weapon, an ancient sword. The language of English is haunted. Happy Halloween. All right, calendar. So let's zip it out to all the way to Halloween Day in a couple weeks, right? So let's do some time travel wizarding. We're going to plant a million seeds of perfect design of people being healthy, happy, and safe. The intuition of the greater achievement, our nation, and the world in the universe, everything getting better. It is this way, perfect design. Shoosh, perfect bullseye. Boom. So we launch that arrow of our mind, and the imagination launches, and the understanding of what we're talking about is like this segment of time. So we also, as wizards on the planet, have this sort of whiplash sweet spot, right, of a dimensional bend, the image of time itself, right? And so we have that as an authority as we're moving forward. And we've just done that. We've just applied with the perfect bullseye. And so when I said perfect bullseye, it's sort of this like, yes, it's completed, and sort of this crystal, right? Because it's hard for us to. I mean, that's how much power we actually have. Sort of it's like, and boom, and we just change the future for the better. Okay, that's how much power we have because it wouldn't be appropriate for us to be like, oh, you have to like maintain this like an agonizing concept for, you know, no, we're like royalty. And it's just like you have to find the parchment or the dimension that can instantly crystallize and surrender the cognitive spell casting. Okay, so our general desire should be what protects the home and the earth and all this, but it appears that what the earth is saying with the rhythms of history and time and all, I'm just saying like earth is like we need to go now. Okay, so earth is going go 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 go, you know, or this is like really a good season for us to work hard, and it's just like whatever you're doing, work hard. All right, so this sort of spooky thing where like in an advanced chamber, this vector goes inside of Randy's mind and projected out some sort of South Park invention by Trey Parker, right? So Trey would have to think about that, think about like what would come out of Randy's head. And would they could it be turned into this little video game character that becomes animated and then it's like, oh, and then does Randy like try to start it to talk to it? Is it his dog? Is it his child? You know, does he start getting frisky with it? You know, this is like this whole thing where, oh, this like virtual reaction where you're having a relationship with the robots, but you just need a little bit more of video game engineering into a home style unit, and I want to show it first on South Park. And people are going to be like, oh my gosh, because this is sort of like this is technology we have, but it just hasn't been put together yet. So as a technician, it's like really on my heart. And this narrative I want to talk about in my streaming service, I want to talk about robot design and actually start building some robots and having like, the ability for people to order parts and stuff online in a virtual market. So they go into a virtual reality market and they're like swiping between like different robot parts. It would be so cool. So that's actually, that's like so down the road. But I just want to spark that feeling in South Park. And just me, I, you know, I would have to, I want to do it this way through South Park because it is a recognition of our society and a recognition of Eric Cartman's authority, respecting Eric's authority. That's what I'm talking about as like, American made sort of quality. But I thought there would be this admission or an embrace to the American children in a romanticizing of the experience of Stan Marsh. So when Stan is having the same sort of computer intense experience with the Vampire King, who's already like he's his friend, it's his new friend, right? But the Vampire King is just sort of cool, like he allows us to have like a spiritual encounter or experience, right? So Stan has this thing where he's using the same thing, but he doesn't freak out like Randy does because for Randy's a cartoon character, but Stan has the properties of a hero, and it's like this way of us acknowledging how brave our kids are because they're the ones who are really this is their impression. Okay, so and I believe that they are learning a lot about themselves. Okay, I think they're really learning a lot about I don't know, like there's just like a deep person is developing here in 2020, and it might only mature in 4 or 5 years, but a new generation of people just being like, oh, they have like this type of muscle, or they appreciate, some things a little bit differently because they're willing to. It's like they understand that the schools might shut down. Like these things, we're in charge of this society. Like, oh, hey, the environment, we have to hold this up. Oh, well, let's plant these trees. It's actually really exciting. But with robots, we can talk about planting trees with drones and cleaning up garbage with robots as well. So I think it's just incredibly natural to marry these things. To master our garden, to master the season of technology, bridging from communication into technology is what I'm talking about. So I'm like an angel of that. I'm like the entity, hatch, panheliosphere. And this is my suit of armor, my space suit, master source. And I went out here to like travel the universe and discover through my spaceship, you know. But the contour of the epidermis of the body is a zerosphere containing the description of one soul. And the mere description is imaginary, but it is in fact a part of a missing keystone that holds together everything, maintains solid stasis matter, allows and gives us the perspective of when we're working with computers, we're just playing with uh, a non atomic representation suggestion of physical matter. Of course, virtual matter is not physical matter. And so we're going into the computer into an unstable space. And so it's like double space or like ghost ghost. It's the way that the animal is a more mature, sophisticated image of the entire universe because you're bringing together the entire universe through the embodiment process into the singularity of one identity with a face and moving forward like an image of time. And so that's why it's important to identify yourself and armor up from within, that you are this one person, and anything causing sickness or danger to your body or to your beloved ones needs to leave your body, and boom, and just boom, install those sort of cannons. And then you can attach it to your feet or something to realize, like, oh, with every footstep that I've ever taken in my life is a multiplication of the insistency that I am just me and my body, and no cancers, no sickness allowed here. Okay, I'm gonna stamp it out. And then you can do that. Then you build like muscles. Oh, I see. And then you have you know a design which becomes the inheritance, like a sheltering tree, which gives you the power. You have to work on yourself, sort of, and then you can protect society, and you can protect your kids, and you can protect the family. And it's so important that it comes from the person, because this upholds axioms of karma and return cycles of ownership, and the difference between people. Like, oh, that person did that, so that doesn't belong to you, or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, all that stuff is the moral law, but it affects energy. So there's like these other dimensions. It's really interesting, and there's a lot to explore. But I think really the exciting thing is self-development. Okay, so once we realize hatch the heliosphere eggs, we know that we're not doomed here on Earth, and that there's a plan in the universe. Then we understand that's very exciting about who we are, and our opportunities to continue to customize ourselves and increase the velocity and the potential of who we are. We plan ahead, say, like, all right, a million years from now, I'll be looking back and be like, oh gosh, I wish I had planted the seeds of Ziggunon and the Casciolo trees of the Brighton of left clave right now ish. Okay, so we're planting those seeds right now, and all of a sudden, this tremendous time travel happens because we just completed a million-year curl of time travel, and it comes crashing down on our one of a kind self. Boom! Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I invested in those currencies, because that's a big thing later on. And now I'm secure, and my I have a consciousness that continues in seasons and into the afterlife, millions of years into the future. I'm a continued angel of presence in the universe, being my own excellent self. And that's because I'm a warrior for the embodiment. I'm saying yes to the light. I'm saying yes to the self. I'm saying yes to hatch the heliosphere eggs. I'm saying yes to what, it's because it's like we're against the nothingness. It's like, the tragedy of existence is this painful expense that each person pays for. We all pay for our own suffering as we go along. So that's a kind of the inside joke about the life. We are the life. And so, but the work of living is real, and it's the actual fight against the nothingness of, like, disembodiment, dust, and it's disorganized, and it's just, and no one's like learning anything. You need these huge structures of people, you know, it's this huge effort, and it's to be respected. That's what I'm upset about with genetic tampering and misuse of. That's why I'm passionate about design and stuff, because that's the fight of life. But I mean, the child is born innocent every time, and so the child is not an appropriate landscape for holy war, like as Scientology suggests. And we can't allow such sort of remote access, or spiritual manipulation is not okay. Not for our people, not for us, not for our kids, right? So the future is bright, and it's made for our kids, and we need to fight for this economic and environmental transformation. But the word to the wise is that if we fight, we can preserve the environment. Our bigger problem is finance. There's a maturity, nothing, nothing that we don't already know about. Okay, so if we're not able to afford super cities, and the way things are right now are we're seeing the elderly form of an economy built like this. Okay, so we're not on the gold standard, so the spirit or the dimension is disconnected, and so it literally is binary numbers, and it's driving it down. And oh, China gets clever with a pocket calculator and starts grinding out the numbers, and gaining the value of their dollar over the U.S. dollar. But who the hell cares? And America is still just sort of figuring things out and being in their mind, just being like, what the fuck is going, it's like, oh my, my God, so we have this huge deficit, but it's going to be fine, and it's like, but there are much more intelligent forms of economy, but you would need technology to facilitate that process, and that's exactly what we have. Right, so that's when we're growing up as a nation, is we need to double down and respond. Okay, so here's the big, this is canon. You understand? I'm planning to remove the need for the working class from American society. I'm going to make it so that people don't have to do jobs. We're going to go into robotics and basic mandatory income. And then, so the gameplay of economy and becoming wealthy is for the daring of heart who want to, like, oh, I'm really interested in building these sorts of custom thing that I'm passionate about. Then we have people doing what they're passionate about and they're getting paid for it. Okay, that's the environment where we're really encouraging America to happen. And I want super cities to happen and people to be able to travel for free or even get paid to travel around and interact with the robots and AI that they're building and working with. It's like the society, it's like the next form of our familiarity today with The Simpsons, Walt Disney, South Park, Batman. And you can see how it's just like, Star versus the forces of evil got canceled prematurely, or to the wise. She was just a little bit too Punky Brewster. She was a little too alive. And so she got the cancel culture axe, that type of immaturity that dwarfs things that are actually a light to the society, is an indication of the system of the down, is the type of thing that the communication industry today can spot on their radar and see it. Oh, yeah, yeah, I know what he's talking about. Okay, but for later when we have like robots and AI, these robots would be like, oh, this, that colossal Milky Way system is hazing us with an impression that we're not this and that, and it's injuring my electrical storm here. And so I'm not able to control the rain patterns because the earth is crying. It's just like this. Oh, really? Okay. So, um, but we have a lot of characters, but they're, thank God we have hardworking superheroes. It's not just Batman; it's all these superheroes. DC Universe and all that. Those guys are doing so much work for us. Being, oh, be a good citizen, son. Like, here we go. It matters. Let's go. All right. So I wanted to play between Randy's use of one of these telepathic things that is extracting actual vector snapshots. It's like a little vector of a camera, and what Hatch discovered is it actually works. He's like, "Oh, I figured out how this actually freaking works." I stick it in, and it's done in South Park animation, right? And then what I'm saying is going to be the inspiration here is how will South Park animators visualize the in exchange and this sort of visual, and it's not like it's hard to explain. I'm like, we could use a couple filters. We don't have to say, oh, it's just gonna be you know, thousands of hours and everything, cut brand new. We don't, we could use like some echo filters as like a suggestion of an engine that's running. It's like, oh, it's flux capacitating some energy, but it's really just one picture getting like staggered, like like that or something, but it's layered. And then there's a light going over here, and then there's a thing over there. And it's just very pleasing because they pass by it and they're like, oh, this is where the engine gets heated up, and here, sit here, and then oh, he puts on the thing, and then this huge thing comes out of his head. And so it's an epiphany for Trey to come up with the serene event of totally shocking, like eye candy and also laughter. So the humor, and it's just like, oh no, so something terrible happens, but then people laugh. That's the challenge for Trey in that scene. I want to change the volume of South Park this season. I want to challenge Trey Parker. So, rolling entropy for me, my visual experience. Um, I'll be working with Trey Parker and his friends as animators on my desktop, doing that. But I want Trey to understand that I'm sort of working towards opening my own streaming service. And the way to do that really is I just want to start making shows. Okay, so I'm going to start making like commissions and working with people online. So it's all outsourcing at first. And it's actually tremendously affordable, but completely out of my budget. Okay, that's why I need a producer. But I could take over the world with 3 movies. I've already got them sort of. It's like these different. It's like bending together quasars and showing it, and then it's this experience, and it's gonna be awesome. All right, thank you so much. Like, it's a wonderful thing for us to get together and just talk about America today and how can we make it better. I think Earth was talking to me about the true heart of America is the cure to the depression, and me working with Trey Parker, I think is a vision of Earth. I'm an artist, and I understand the rhyme and reason. It's on you. Trey is an advanced artist. Not he doesn't have the same hang-ups um, as other artists do. But for me, it's like if my Lotus arrives to America through South Park, it's like they're like, oh, unexpected, and then they don't have a preset for what's next. And so what's next is like, oh, a new streaming service, and then this, and then I'm actually designing robots, and then there's this actual thing that you can order, and oh my gosh, and then 2024, I'm actually talking about changing the economy. And so, if you want to talk about politics, it's really just a simple thing. Changing the economic structure is all we need to do with a good spirit, American spirit. Like, okay, we want everyone to have a good time in America. Yeah, I'm going to obliterate the workforce. You won't have to have a job in America. It's an intellectual future where, and then we can really find out what supply and demand is. And people are supporting something, all that can be upgraded and increase the value of the dollar, even in a way that's so easily understood, like it's respected. Like, oh, I respect this currency because it is an image of our societal agreement. It's like America itself, the home of the free. But I want to make a. Okay, so what I'm trying to say in this recording is that for the animators of South Park to be rendering the cyberpunk vision that I'm talking about. So I sort of talk and I explain and I have my drawings, but then it's for Trey Parker's animators to sort of make it South Park. Right? So it's this through the filtering, that's when this sort of beautiful thing happens. It's like a peacock that awakens because there's rules of South Park animation that can't be, oh, we can't do that, but I'm like I'm not saying that you know, I, the character of Hatch, I want him to have long green hair, but I'm hoping that there's can be individual sections so that when he stops, it can lurch and flare like fingers. And I'd be like, can we do that on South Park? And they'd be like, oh yeah, we could do that. Yeah, but like just that so that when Hatch stops and like he looks at something like his hair like flips out and it's like flips out and then it cuts like so it's really quite fast, but like something a little different like that would be really interesting to me. All right. Mhm. I'm excited about the work ahead. I'm excited to get to work. But yeah, like I need a better computer station and then I'm thinking about like I'm working here and then sort of working on my social structure about and talking about Trey about a calendar about how he'd like to help me to open because it's absolutely like the building is a narrative, like the building where I can open my streaming service is a narrative, but I know like I think I can get there better by building first a community online and start working with some people who are talented and then be like, oh hey, we got you guys, we got a building, and then like all of a sudden, oh good, I've got like 20 like really people that I really like, just adding on. um, and I see the sort of lifestyle of a studio, man, it's going to be so popular. And there's departments where people are full costuming, and there's these light up eyes and these monsters, and they have like photo shoots and stuff, but they also do stunts. And there's sort of this character where, when you get your coffee in the morning, you bump into them, and there's crossovers, but there's like motion tracking animation. It's so interesting because, like I was saying about um, the quality of the animation that is got from a cell phone, it's like that Hadron Collider image I was talking about, like the impression that people have of the quality of that. Oh, this was taken with a cell phone, and they can see like the mouth is moving to the voice, but it's like a little bit late or something. Like they're like, oh, they have like a feeling for that nature of animation and everything. And so I know how to bend the element just so to the point where it's like they're seeing something new or it's being done through filters to become profound again. And so like with motion capture animation, I really do have a vision for a new way of showing it, but yeah, I'm seeing like it can be done very affordably and like a series of and like genius, but it's like silver screen quality. Even if it's low polygon, it's just beautiful because it's using the shifting colors and some fog is rolling in and the sort of whited out colors, the peach dawn, um, sort of. So I wanted to talk more about the mood that we would have inside of the VR experience in the Millhouse water wheel because they're trying to awaken the Green Wolf robot, which eventually becomes a toy that people use as sort of this jukebox, right? Interactive robot toys, right? That like would create music with you. That's like their friendship with you, and you're also defeating the problems of the future. So it's like a wizard playset. Really cool, and it becomes personalized. So the energy flame, the yeah, the magic of the input, the touch screen. Okay, that personalizes the identity of the magic casting by the gamer, and that customizes it to the return function of their home sending point. So this is really quite spirited, and they're like, "Oh, this and this," because it's all custom stuff coming out of their hands. That's the real magic. So that's how to defeat consumerism, is to give people products that are intellectually engaged towards getting people into a better place in their existence. And using general specifics, you can narrow it down. Just being helpful is possible. The light uh, existence is very um, uplifting. It's exciting to be alive. I wouldn't rather be anyone else than me. I'm totally in love with my lifetime. Yeah, I'm full fledged, complete, and unlimited. My existence is eternal. Hatch, Pan-heliosphere. Hatch the heliosphere eggs. All right. But what I want to say is, like, visually, I want South Park. So this is like going back to that where map image, the two sides, like that. I want to see that just be like, oh, South Park has gone cyberpunk, and it allows for a whole new line of toys that are cyberpunk and interactive. I want to make it a part of the playset with the Green Wolf robot toy. Um, but that can be expandable. I mean, it could be like even like a year from now, like a new extra toy that plays with this playset is conducive to it. It's just like, oh, get a new member of your play band. It's like tune 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 tune. They're just making songs, but it's about making the future better. So there's sort of this energy to it. Yeah. All right, you guys. Thank you so much. I wanted to talk about the mood, but it's for me. I'm just like I think what's significant about the map is that we're talking about like doing the transformation of the communication industry going into cyberpunk, and we're seeing it happen, like visualized computing and ideas that I'm bringing as a writer, but then we're doing that on South Park, and that's like that's the real wizard, that's the real event, and we're saying, okay, you know America is growing from this experience, and let's give them a punch, and then the Green Wolf robot awakens, and destroys the trash island. An exciting end. And it's an excellent episode for South Park. I'd love to work with you, Trey, on this next mm, Halloween episode, or there's probably an episode before the Halloween episode. All right, so please, let's break the trend and give me the job. I'm excited to do an American uh, company and just sort of have the dialogue, have the friendship with America. Um, I'm in love. Thank you so much, Trey Parker. I really appreciate you as my friend. All right, as perfect, as complete, as good.